Right, hello and welcome everybody to Are You Selling IUL the Wrong Way? I'm your host, Brian Lysing. I'm a life insurance marketer here at Financial Brokerage, and I want to thank everybody for taking some time out of their day to join us for this. This is really the third in a series of IUL webinars that I've been hosting over the past few weeks here at Financial Brokerage. For those of you who may not be familiar with Financial Brokerage, we are a national marketing organization working with agents and advisors all over the country in areas of life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability insurance, critical illness insurance, and Medicare supplements. As I mentioned, I'm one of our life insurance specialists, and IUL is really one of my most favorite topics to speak about. There's a lot that goes into the product and a lot going on, and makes it a little bit more interesting than, say, your basic term insurance sale. So today we're going to cover a concept that can help you help your client. Well, it's going to help you and help your clients, right? There are a few questions you could be asking your clients in a retirement income sales scenario, where if you ask these questions, you can increase the income that they should be able to receive out of the product later on. You can certainly increase the death benefit that goes to their family, and you're, along the way, going to increase the commissions that you receive. Now, I want to start by asking you a few questions. How do you sell IUL right now? Do you begin with the face amount? And this is pretty common. I get this request a lot from advisors and agents who call and ask for an illustration. They say, yeah, I'd like to get an IUL illustration for my client for $500,000. Well, if that's the question, then I have to respond back with several other questions, because I don't know what the goal is here, right? Is it a protection-based sale? Is it an income-based sale? And when we start with the face amount, that's usually not the best way to illustrate an income-based sale. Well, the other question, or the other way you might start with your IUL sale would be starting with the premium. How much can the client pay, or how much would you like the client to pay? How much money are they going to put into this policy? And that actually allows us to run the illustration in an optimal manner. So that's good. But if you think about it, when we're selling IUL for income purposes, right, tax-free distributions usually in a person's retirement years, well, isn't this really a retirement planning sale? Why are we starting with the premium? We should probably start with the amount of money that the client wants to be receiving in retirement. That would make the most sense. And then maybe back into the premium, and along the way back into the face amount. So that's what we're going to cover this morning. But what we're going to use for our basis for this comes from what I'm going to call the typical IUL sale. Now, I know these numbers are a little old at this point in time. I posted this webinar a couple times before. But in 2017, I was able to get these statistics from Wink. And by the way, they're an organization that compiles all sorts of insurance statistics, particularly on annuities, but also on IUL. Great resource. And they were able to report that in 2017, the average age of an IUL purchaser was 42 years old, had a household income over $100,000. They told us that 80% of the sales, at least in that year, were for accumulation purposes, and the average premium was just over $9,000. Now, I followed these reports for a while, and the average premium did fluctuate, but every report I've seen, it's been in that 9,000, maybe 10,000 range. So that's the typical average IUL sale. And I'm going to use that for a basis. And I'm also going to use as our basis the way that I'm typically asked to run illustrations, which is we're starting with the premium. Client wants to put in X amount of dollars, right? And for this purpose, I'm going to say that X amount is just over $9,000. All right, so I really just described this slide a second ago. When we do this, we begin with oftentimes we begin with the premium the client can afford. because we haven't done any fact finding into how much money they really need to live on in retirement. How much can you afford to put into this product? Or maybe someone will ask, how much are you putting into your 401k? And they use that number. Or how much more would you like to set aside for retirement? And that ends up being the starting number. When we run an IUL illustration, we're then solving for the minimum death benefit that can support that premium without becoming a modified endowment contract. So we want to maintain the tax advantages. And we can do this a couple different ways. We'll either start with an increasing death benefit option while we're in our contribution phase and then switch to a level death benefit in the distribution phase, or we can run a return of premium death benefit option if the carrier has that available. All right, so this is the typical scenario, and it results in a $9,000 premium. As I mentioned before, that system is a little bit backwards, right? The goal is actually retirement income. So why don't we begin by asking our clients, instead of how much money would you like to contribute, we should ask, how much money are you going to need in retirement? Now, some of you may be very familiar. You're already working with retirement planning and money management with your clients. Many of us, myself included, started in the business as a captive career agent and learned everything in the first few weeks, everything from retirement planning to basic life insurance needs analysis to disability insurance, long-term care, auto and homeowners. But I realize that not everybody has gone through those steps, and there may be some of those pieces that are missing from your training. So to give it to you in a nutshell with retirement planning, and we'll have a form coming up that you could be able to use with your clients. You want to start by reviewing their current income. You need to know where they're at right now. How much money do they need to live on today? And then work with them to help figure out their future budget. What might that look like? What's going to be different in retirement from their budget today? Some things will be the same, but you need to determine how much money they're going to need in their retirement years. Once you've done that, you got to figure out where the money is going to come from. Now, what I didn't put on here is, are they going to continue to work, which some people do until they're no longer physically or mentally able. But some people might have a pension, especially if they work for a school system or a government entity. A lot of people are going to have money coming from a defined contribution plan. You might know that more as a 401k. Some point in time, they should have money coming from Social Security, and there's a way to calculate how much that might be. And then they might have other funds that they've set aside either personally, or maybe they've inherited some money or inherited some land somewhere along the way. So you need to take a look at all of those potential income sources and then maybe do the simple math. Is that enough to meet their needs in retirement or their expected needs? And here's just a real easy to use fact finder that I took from one of our partner carriers, PDFs that they had put together. But I think you could do a Google search and find probably 100 documents very similar to this, outlining the same items. Now, as we've taken our client through this process to determine their retirement income needs, you want to look for some yes answers to these questions. And these are the questions that I mentioned early on are going to lead to all these increases in the IUL sales for you. So first of all, is there an income gap, right? What they're currently doing, is that enough? Do they need to be putting more money aside for retirement, or do they need to be putting the money into maybe a different vehicle? But first off, we want to see, is there a gap? Do they need something extra? We also might want to ask them, are they uncomfortable with their current level of market risk? If everything is in their 401k, are they okay with losing 14% in a given year and making 2% in the next year, which still keeps them behind? How long do they have to make up for potential losses? Some people are comfortable with greater swings than others. Maybe they haven't diversified into something that won't give them quite the big negative swings with their retirement money. You also might want to ask them, are they uncomfortable with their current tax exposure? If everything that they've been putting away today is pre-tax, that means they're going to have to pay the taxes in their retirement years. What kind of tax bracket are they going to be in at that point in time? Might the tax rates go up from where they are? We're at near historic lows right now. And with continued deficits and a growing national debt, at some point in time, you might think that Congress would have to raise those tax rates and raise the tax brackets, in which case people are paying taxes at the exact wrong time, right? So let's give them a little diversity if they don't have it right now. So luckily, Index Universal Life can help with all of these concerns. It can give us some extra money. That's something I covered in my last webinar, the sequence of returns. It can eliminate the risk of market downturns and also eliminate taxes on that money. If you caught the Big Three IUL webinar that I hosted a few weeks ago, we covered that in detail there. So we want to look for yes answers. With a lot of clients, you're going to get at least one yes answer or get them curious, and they're going to want to know more. So here's what we do for the better IUL case design, right? We're not starting with the premium the client said they can afford. We're going to work backwards from the income that they need. And to do this, we really just have to estimate the premium. So there's a little trial and error involved. We're still going to solve for the minimum death benefit and then the maximum income in retirement. Now, luckily, you don't have to watch me go through trial and error over and over again. I already did this, and I did this a few years ago. But this was a case where we have a 42-year-old who we've determined needs $100,000 of income in retirement. Now, it doesn't really matter if that's the total amount or if that's to supplement the other stuff that this person has in force. But we need to get to $100,000 of income. And in this illustration, I worked backwards from $100,000. Actually, I started with the premium. I came up with $1,200 a month. $1,200 a month gave us this distribution amount of just over $100,000. And it's fine. We don't hit it directly there because interest rates are going to change. So the best we can do is get close. But in this case, $1,200 a month gets us there. So let's compare this to what I'm going to call the typical IUL sale, right? This is the average. So that typical sale, that would be $770 a month. That's that $9,000 a year sale, right? By asking this particular client some questions, we're not getting a $700 sale. We're getting a $1,200 a month sale. That's a 56% increase. The death benefit is 52% greater. We went from just over $250 now to a $400,000 face amount. And then the income that this client can get. Well, he said he needed $100,000. That's what we're able to demonstrate. If we went with the typical sale that you're going to get, if you just ask how much can you afford, well, in this case, the client would only get $64,000 a year in retirement. On top of that, our commissionable target is much, much higher. Again, it's 50% greater, and we all get paid on target. So would you rather get paid on nearly $4,000 or get paid on nearly $6,000, right? So everybody wins here. The client wins because they have the right amount of money they need in retirement. Their family wins because they now have a higher death benefit should they pass away, and you as the writing agent win because your commissionable target is considerably higher. Now, there could be a problem with this sort of a scenario, right? If you ask a person, what can you afford? And they said $9,000 a year or $770 a month, right? And you're proposing $1,200 a month. Well, there may be a problem there for some folks. They might not have the cash flow to handle that, right? So, one thing you can consider is that by showing them that higher number, they may may not hit it exactly, but they're going to come closer to it than if you just ask them completely out of the blue. So that's one thing to consider. But there is a method we can utilize here to back off the premiums, get it down to an affordable level, and we're going to use that $770 a month figure, and still give the client that $100,000 of income that they want in retirement. So this kind of sounds like magic, but it's really pretty cool the way it works here. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with the client's premium, right? That's the $9,000 figure. And we're going to schedule premium increases into this IUL during the contribution phase. Now, depending on the software, you can schedule it as a percentage or maybe a specified amount, right? Maybe it's going to be an extra $50 a month every year, or it's going to be a 5% increase. And in fact, 5% is what I used in the illustration that you're going to see here shortly. And once again, we have to use trial and error, and maybe that's why most folks don't use this method, because it takes a little bit longer to arrive at the right number. But I know the print is pretty small here off of this illustration, but this is exactly what I did. We started off with the $770 a month premium that the client's paying, and in this case, we're increasing it by 5% every year. Now, most people can handle a 5% increase, right? Maybe they're making more in their job every year. At least we would hope that they are. And over time, those small incremental increases can really make a big difference, and the client really won't notice it quite as much as if you jump from that $770 to the $1,200 figure. And if you look at the very bottom two lines on this page here, you can see that we've arrived at the $100,000 distribution amount, right? That's exactly what the client said they needed, and we're at least starting with the premium that they said that they could afford. Now, how does this compare to our planning sale that we just looked at, right? Because the planning sale where we asked all the questions, it looked a lot better than the typical average IUL sale. Well, our premium's a little bit lower. So we've said that this is where the client's comfortable, at least right now. But by increasing everything along the way, our face amount is now a little bit higher, 23% higher, right? So now the family's doing a little bit better if the person passes away. Our income is exactly where they wanted it to be. We're still giving them $100,000 projected. But look at this. Our commissionable target has now gone up again. Instead of getting paid on $6,000, you're getting paid on almost $7,500, 23% increase, right? Just by helping the client out a little bit more and doing a little bit more work. Now, if we were to compare this to the typical average IUL sale, I mean, the numbers look even better, right? We're still starting at that same premium, but now our face amount is almost double what it was on the typical sale, right? And the client just wasn't going to get the income they needed on the average IUL sale. But now that we've increased their premiums over time, they're going to be right where they need to be. And take a look at your commissionable target. It has also nearly doubled, right? So for the same initial out-of-pocket premium for the client, you've now doubled what you're going to make on the sale. And you really need that because you went to a lot more effort to do this sort of thing than just asking them how much they could afford to put into the policy. All right, so what have we done here? Well, we've solved the client's retirement income problem just by asking a few questions. It doesn't take too long to go through that. The client's still comfortable with the premium that they're paying, right? We didn't ask them to do anything above and beyond initially. And of course, we almost doubled your paycheck while doing that. So I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with that. So as an agent or advisor, what do you need to do next? Now, first, you need to find your target market. Who are we going to talk to about this concept, right? And if we go back to that study from 2017, we know that most purchasers of index life are between 35 and 55. The average age is 42. Household income in six figures. And we know that, of course, 80% of the IUL sales are for accumulation purposes. If we want to drill down a little bit further, among that group of people, who should we really be talking to? Well, you want to try to find people who make too much money to place any funds into a Roth IRA, right? And the tax laws change every year. You can easily look that up for 2023 and see what that level is. So if you know which of your clients are in that category, you want to have this conversation with them. If you can find out who is maxing out their 401k, right? You can only put so much money into a 401k per year, and then that's it. Maybe you know some business owners who are not happy with the contribution limits of other plans. Business owners have a lot of flexibility depending upon the retirement plan they have, but maybe they'd like to set aside even more money than what they currently are. These folks would be great candidates. And closely related to that would be the companies that are paying bonuses to key executives. Maybe they'd like a bonus that's going to grow for those folks in a tax-free environment. Now, if we want to branch out a little bit, we've been talking primarily about what I would call here the young professional market, right? The higher income, younger folks that want to put away some money for retirement. But they're not the only group to be talking to. You might want to get in front of what I would call pre-retirees. These are people about 10, 15 years away from retirement. They may have some money already set aside somewhere in some other vehicle, but it might not be the best vehicle for their situation, right? And these folks are looking to put in a lot of money oftentimes in a short period of time. Now, you could still look at retirees as well. Maybe they have some existing funds that are going to be taxable, and you might want to do an analysis to figure out if maybe paying taxes today or over the next 5 years is going to be more advantageous than waiting and paying them in 20 or 30 years, or waiting and letting the money pass to their heirs who might be in an even higher tax bracket, right? But you need to have that conversation with them and crunch the numbers. But as long as they're healthy, again, it may make sense to start moving funds into an IUL and take advantage of today's low federal income tax rates. And there are some other things we can do too if they're uninsurable, and we can use other people potentially as the insureds for these products. So how do you find these people? The best thing to do is start with your current client database and just go through the people who fit all the criteria that I laid out here, and set the appointments, have those conversations. You could also conduct webinars, much like I'm doing here. I think as we went through the pandemic, a lot of people got more and more comfortable with virtual meetings, and you don't necessarily need to do a Zoom meeting or be there on video. More and more, we're finding that people are open to some sort of a virtual meeting, such as a webinar, and certainly continue with your social media outreach on every platform that where you have a presence. All right, so that's the conclusion of today's webinar. Are you selling IUL the wrong way? Hopefully you came away with some key points and suggestions that you can incorporate into your daily meetings with clients and prospects. So I want to thank everybody for their time. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions right now, and we'll start going through those.